I'm George Takei, and I was born here in Los Angeles. I'm a native Angelino, second-generation Californian. When we were in camp, behind those barbed wire fences of internment camps, occasionally they would show movies in the mess halls. That was fascinating, because we didn't go to the movies before that. First time that I saw what the world was like beyond the barbed wire fence. Sometimes didn't have the soundtrack. And so they had a man from one of the blocks in camp who accompanied that film from block to block. And he became the voice of all the characters. And he would be the gruff samurai like this, and then he would be the Tono-sama with this very regal mane. Or the princess, his daughter, Ara, the voices all changed, and I was focused more on that person. My father later told me that they're called benshis. Benshis were absolutely fascinating, and I wanted to be something like that. But then, as you grow up and we were out of camp, my father took me to see The Adventures of Robin Hood, and Errol Flynn became my hero. And then as a teenager, I began reading about the civil rights movement. And I became active in the civil rights movement as well. And Sidney Poitier became my hero. So it kept changing. Nothing remains constant in life, and your heroes keep changing. But ultimately, it became my father. He's the one that I admired the most for what he did for us. He was a block manager in camp. When I became a teenager and I began reading civics books and history books and reading about the shining ideals of our democracy, I couldn't quite reconcile that with what I knew to be our childhood imprisonment. And so I had many after-dinner discussions with him. But I also learned about American democracy from what my father shared with me. He said, our democracy is a people's democracy, and the people are capable of great things, but people are also fallible human beings, and they failed the test of democracy in 1941 when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. But then he said, our democracy requires people who cherish those shining ideals and actively engage in the process of democracy, and sometimes hold democracy's feet to the fire in order to keep it true. Shortly after we came out from camp, my father said, there's a form of theater that is dying, and this is going to be the last time you'll be able to see it. It's called vaudeville, he said, and there's a beautiful theater downtown. And I thought we were going to go as a family, all of us. But this was shortly after we came back from camp. We were destitute. And yet, he cared enough about what he knew about me that we took the streetcar downtown. Going down Broadway in that streetcar was a mind-blowing experience. All these movie theaters, these movie palaces, and we got off and we walked to this theater that said the Orpheum, and he bought the tickets and we walked in, and the minute you stepped into that lobby, the plushness of the carpeting, we come out of camp. I'd never seen, first of all, a two-story building, much less something that's that elegant. And we kept climbing up and up and up and up to the very last row. It was the cheapest seat. But to me, it was the best seat because I could see the whole vastness of that theater and the proscenium arch glowing, it too was gilded. And I saw horses that could add and subtract, and acrobats that did death-defying stunts and ridiculous comics. It was an absolutely unforgettable experience. First of all, I'm an actor. It fulfills me. I'm so gratified that I can make a living at doing what I enjoy doing. But I also am a social justice advocate and an activist. And I've always felt that movies, television, theater, the media are a powerful way to convey a story and shape people's perceptions. In fact, we were put into these barbed wire prison camps because of the perceptions, the stereotypes that have been sold by the media. So to be able to fuse my soul as an actor and my passion as a social justice activist with the opportunity to tell the story of the internment of Japanese Americans as a musical on Broadway, we've shared with them the Japanese American community, the values, our culture, and our strength, and our anguish, and we did it to music. We first tried out in San Diego. We called it the premiere of Allegiance. There, at the Old Globe Theater, we broke all records. They've been around for 77 years, and we broke their 77-year record for box office and attendance. And encouraged by that, we took it to Broadway. We are very, very proud of what we did, because Allegiance is an important American story. Yes, it happened to Japanese Americans, but it also happened to the United States Constitution. It was the most egregious violation of our Constitution. And Americans need to know that, all Americans. The American dream is a cliche that's pretty threadbare now, I think. I mean, Arthur Miller put to rest that false dream in the middle of the last century with the death of a salesman. I mean, you know, what is that American dream? What are you aspiring to? More money? Money doesn't fulfill you, you know? Comfort? Are you going to be bored being comfortable, you know? It's to be able to live your life fulfilling what fulfills you. I believe in constantly working to fulfill yourself, who you are. But the American dream, I think, is false. It's self-delusion. Young actors have a completely changed scene today. The opportunities are there. Some of those opportunities can be enormously fulfilling, but there are still those roles that can be difficult for people to take on. What I sense now, particularly in this day and age, after we've made all these progress, where we've had Asian Americans in major roles, in major films, I think we are retrogressing. It's that 3 steps forward and 2 steps back period. We have Tilda Swinton playing an Asian man, a Tibetan monk. Hollywood says that we have to cast this way because their names, because their box office. Well, every time they've done something like that in Hollywood, when they've had Caucasian actors made to look like Asian Americans or Asians, we call it yellowface, those movies have been flops. Look at one of my favorite movies, Lawrence of Arabia. Who ever had heard of Omar Sharif until he appeared in that film? The film was a big box office hit, and Omar Sharif became a star. We need to be cast authentically when the few occasional roles for Asian Americans or Asians come up, because we have a whole history of having been played by non-Asians in yellowface. A lot of major films with Caucasian stars flop. Why can't they take that risk with Asians or Asian Americans? Because the risk is across the board. It's the same. And if that movie is really good, it will be a hit. And that Asian American actor will become a star. They have to be given the opportunity. I'm George Takei, and I'm a guy who loves life in all its fascinating diversity.